Welcome back to Lost Odyssey. So, let's search for more dreams before we move on with the story.
Don't we have like only 2 left in the game total, not counting the DLC one?
I think it's like
If I
one before the Queen. Yeah, we have the. Well, yeah, I think so. Hey, you can't just take that.
About optional
Hey,
ones too.
come back here.
No, stop, come back.
Make me.
Bah, he gets me every time. I'm gonna teach him a lesson one of these days.
Riff raff, street rat.
Scoundrel, take that.
Effort.
Of course, this reminds Kaim of something.
Lottery of life.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, the lottery.
Having kids is like playing the lottery. That was how the police commissioner put it, with a grim smile in his eye. He was the man in charge of domestic security, too.
Sometimes you pick a winner and sometimes you pick a loser. Life is like that. You can't control it. Wow. What a charming person.
Detective, aren't we?
Kaim responded with a silent nod. Not that he was convinced that you could divide people into winners and losers, but that was how they did it here in this country that was the size of a city. He had no choice but to recognize it as a reality because the man who kept the peace here believed it, and this nation was known for having the best public safety of all the countries in the region.
Every kid in there is a loser.
He spat out, jerking his chin towards the juvenile prison visible from his office window. But built to old young criminals, this was the largest and most strictly run and most closely guarded prison to be seen in any of the neighboring countries. Its treatment of its young inmate was also the harshest.
Oh boy. We focus on rehabilitation, right? Not just breaking their souls.
Sure, Jova.
At least that's how it should be.
You're a foreigner, Kaim, so you may not approve, but we have our own way of doing things. I see.
Kaim said.
Losers are losers. There's nothing you can do to make losers into winners. It's never going to
There
happen.
you go, Jova. Rehabilitation is bullshit, according to this guy.
Losers, we just turn into bigger losers and give the decent people a little trouble. See what I mean? It's one way of looking at things.
Kaim's deliberate irony was lost on the police commissioner.
Well, it depends on the
Of course it
circumstances. Like everything does.
No, it's the only way. If you're going to have a safe, peaceful country,
He declared.
and we'll expect you to abide by this view too.
Kaim had nothing more to say to him. If he were to insist on confronting the police commissioner, he might be seen as questioning the authorities, which could land him in the adult's prison. This would be easy enough to bring about for the police commissioner, and indeed for anyone in the city-state who stood on the side of the powers that be.
Now that's one of the worst things, an immortal sentence to life in prison.
Remember, we had something similar previously.
The commissioner glanced again toward the juvenile prison. They built
that place 80 years ago,
he said.
which is to say, the very first building they made when the present political system came into being was a prison to throw young offenders into.
Kaim knew this. For Kaim, whose life went on forever, events of 80 years before could well have happened yesterday. 80 years earlier, this country had experienced a coup d'etat. The revolutionary government ruled the people under a military dictatorship and jailed every last person suspected of disturbing the peace and order. The government was especially wary of younger criminals. So yeah, fuck them kids, basically, says the commissioner.
There's a limit to how serious a kid's crime can be. But let's get them away with those, and the next thing you know, they're doing really bad stuff. They might be satisfied with shoplifting at first, but soon lead into burglary, muggings. They start using weapons, and in the end they think nothing of killing people, yet to nip them in the bud.
Break their spirits early.
Use spares the rose, spoils the child, I guess.
The kids sent to prison were fed the absolute minimum to keep them alive. No doctor saw them if they fell sick or were injured. Subjected to such harsh imprisonment, they succumbed one after another, and more than a few of them ended up as cold corpses pitched out the back door. Whenever one did manage to serve out his term and return to the outside world, he found it impossible to erase the brand of loser. Children with criminal records were soundly rejected by the respectable society. The social system was structured in such a way that nothing worked for them. Employment, marriage, even finding a place to live. Expelled by society, these boys and girls returned to crime as a way to stay alive, eventually ending up in adult prison.
This is sadly true for still a lot of country. The idea that if you actually had committed one crime, that's enough for you to be precluded to a lot of jobs and even the right to vote.
Yeet. And of course, the cycle. Some people actually
Which kind of
commit
defeats
crimes just to have a place to live.
Which kind of defeats the whole point of the whole point of quote unquote paying your debt to society. I mean, if society's still going to act as if the debt has not been repaid, then what's the point? With a bitter smile, the police commissioner said to Kaim.
I'm sure this all sounds terrible to an outsider like you.
Kaim answered with a slight nod. This only served to raise the suspicions. Go ahead.
I know what you're thinking.
He said.
To tell you the truth, sometimes I think the system is a little too harsh on them too. They have to realize that they're not just punishing bad kids, we're also holding them up as an example to the good ones. What would they think if they saw the ex-criminals out on the streets again, walking along like nothing ever happened? They figure that even if they got their hands dirty and spent a few years in jail, they could just go back to their old lives. The society's punishment is no big deal, but they can get away with murder. We wouldn't want our kids to be like that, would we? So the only thing is for us grown-ups to teach them. Look at those guys, we can say. All it takes is one bad deed and your life is over.
Of
so
course.
You listen to your parents and
Of course.
teach them good.
Of course, the way to raise kids well is by scaring them to death with fear. Of course, how did I not realize this before? It's so simple.
And not traumatic whatsoever.
He definitely had a point. Kaim was willing to grant him that, but still the commissioner must have noticed a hint of shadow crossing Kaim's face, and he shifted his tone of voice. With bureaucratic conviction, he declared,
The authorities have received word that there is going to be a coup. Of course, the military have everything under control, so there is nothing to worry about. They could suppress it right now if they wanted to. They could easily attack the agitators and capture the ringleaders of the plot. In this case, though, they decided to let it get started in order to smoke out every last one of the reactionary elements.
That's what this is really about.
And Kaim asked, isn't that corrupt?
Yep.
So let me guess. They're mainly afraid of the young.
According to the
minds who
government's
might question
intelligence.
how the system works.
Yeah, according to the government's intelligence, the uprising was scheduled to occur that very night.
We are prepared for just about any eventuality, but there is always the possibility of unexpected. If there were a riot inside the juvenile prison time to coincide with the rebellion, that could be a real problem.
This is why Kaim had been hired as a temporary prison guard, a bodyguard for the state.
Simple, really. They're probably just jailing people because they don't want them. Well, they're not getting with the program.
We're counting on your skills as a seasoned warrior, which is why we're entrusting you with such a major responsibility. Sure to live up to our expectation. If you have to resort to violence, we have no problem with that. Where you do, it will be for the sake of law and order. It will be in order to protect the happiness of decent citizens of our nation. Carrying out your duties with complete dedication of body and soul.
The commissioner handed Kaim a one-page document. It was literally a license to kill.
So Kaim is James Bond now.
Act without the slightest restraint. All the prison guards have one of these. But still, you are intended to impose the ultimate punishment on a single loser, and countless winners among the upstanding citizenry must suffer the consequences. You understand, I'm sure. Once a loser, always a loser. Rather than living with such a burden, they themselves might be happier to have you kill them and get it over with.
Kaim accepted the document from the commissioner without comment.
That completes our contractual agreement. Now assume your post.
With a perfectly straight face, the commissioner cautioned Kaim.
Just make sure you don't let any foolish compassion get in your way.
You know, Kaim, given that you're an immortal, surely you don't have to take some of the more reprehensible jobs.
The season was midwinter, but Kaim found no hint of fire burning in the juvenile prison. In their tiny solitary cells, the young inmates, wrapped in ragged blankets, lay helplessly in the dark. Painful moaning came from one cell, suggesting its inmate might be running a fever. From another came unbroken, shrill, mean laughter that could only the person's mean the person's mind has snapped. So the Joker is in
Could
here.
only the person's-
I guess these really sarcasms, I don't know.
that could only the person's mind have snapped. I think you missed out the mean.
Yeah.
That's someone else.
Oh yeah.
What?
Dwebs, you can be the guard. Go ahead.
What you see is what you get.
Said the veteran guard, guiding Kaim on the first round of inspection.
Now, one of those faces shows any life. So even if there was something were to happen, these pitiful creatures couldn't do a damn thing. They're losers, all right. They're breathing, but that's about it.
Is there really no possibility of them being repeated and becoming winners?
The other guard gave Kaim a momentary blank stare and said with a laugh and a wave,
No, not at all.
80 years since the revolution, and the change in generations has replaced virtually all the people from that time. Since coming of age, this prison guard who had no memory of life before the revolution had been implanted with the idea that people were either winners or losers, and he surely never doubted. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed, at first the guard's line had winners, but it got replaced with losers. I don't know if you noticed the way the words were moving there. That's a nice touch.
Yep.
Karen,
They went out of their way to hire you. So it might be a little strange for me to say this, but I'm sure the kids in there are never going to riot, no matter how wild things get on the outside. Splash a little cold water on them, and they'll quiet right down. There's almost none of them you have to worry about.
Almost.
Well, I can't claim that about every single one of them. There are even losers among the losers, unfortunately.
The guard showed Kaim to the end of the hall, and there he opened the lock on a door so thick it could be mistaken for a section of wall.
See
Look at
this loser?
He hasn't given up hope yet.
Yeah, then that's the best part. Beyond here are the punishment cells. This is where we throw the incorrigible losers. The ones who have caused trouble on work details, the ones who take a defiant attitude, the ones who show no sign of remorse for their crimes.
Suddenly it was clear to Kaim. It was clear to him because he had experienced countless battlefields in his life. The punishment cells were darker and far colder than the regular cells, but from the depths of the darkness, from which within each individual cell, there emanated a quiet heat that could not be felt from the regular cells. The people in here were alive. They were not simply breathing. They were alive with real passion.
Oh, we can't have that.
Alright, we can't have that. Bust out the whip.
Jesus.
With spikes on it. The crimes that originally got them locked up there were nothing much. Little burglary, some purse snatching, flashing a knife, stuff like that. If they just quietly served out their terms, they'd be out now, living obscure lives somewhere.
Instead, they resisted and kept resisting. They called for better treatment of inmates. They appealed for an end to discrimination against former prisoners. The number of their crimes multiplied until it became clear that they would never get out of here there alive.
They'll just go straight from here to the adult prison where they grow up. It'll be 20 or 30 years where they can breathe the outside air again. If they can live that long, which would be quite an accomplishment. What do you mean better treatment? Of course we give our inmates better treatment. Any signs of dissent, we just shoot them. We don't torture them anymore, we just shoot them in the head.
The guard concluded with a belly-shaking laugh, which was interrupted by a voice echoing from a dark cell. Jova, go ahead.
Stop that laughing.
It was a quiet but commanding voice. For the one that retained a hint of boy, it's meant to be a boy, Jova, so a little more high-pitched. A look of fear crossed the guard's face, though he quickly reverted to a sneer.
This is the biggest pain we've got.
He said, "Go
His
ahead."
name is Darian. They say he was the leader of a gang of juvenile delinquents on the outside, but here he's just a noisemaker.
The guard picked up a bucket of water from the corridor floor with a thin sheet of ice on its surface and heaved the contents into Duran's cell.
This is what works best on these kids. I mean, we tried acid, but that didn't work very well.
Behind the bars, the drenched boy had rolled himself up into a ball.
This should be enough for him to freeze to death, but the water itself freezes again in the early morning. So then their hair and eyelashes and the other hair they've got gets coated in ice. Some of them have lost fingers and toes to frostbite.
Charming.
Absolutely humane.
Again, the acid just burns it right off instantly. This is slower.
The guard laughed again. Duran lay there curled up, but his eyes were shining with such intensity. It was as if he were trying to melt ice with the heat seething from in his breast. Kaim knew those eyes. They were the eyes of a warrior, and not just any warrior, but one on the very front line in a losing battle who watches for a chance to turn the battle in his favor. And Kaim knew something else, that the system was beginning to unravel. It had kept the people in a state of suppression for 80 long years, ever since the revolution, but the very moment of its undoing had arrived.
Was Kaim hired by the rebellion as a spy, I wonder? That'd be a nice change of pace. And would explain why he would take on a position like this.
The prison fire started that night.
It's the coup!
The guard came running to report the situation on the outside. Fires had been set throughout the city, he said. This was, of course, the uprising that government intelligence had anticipated. Martial law was declared, and the government was mobilizing the entire police force and army. Word had come, too, that the ringleaders were already under arrest.
Quick, get the whips with spikes on them. That'll put them down.
Until they get out the guns.
That's alright, we'll just use our nuclear bomb.
One element, however, had been wholly unanticipated. The guard informed him.
Wind is strong tonight.
Fanned by unseizable winds, the flames were racing through the city.
On orders from the commissioner, we're not to fight fires in the juvenile prison. Is that clear? Do not engage in firefighting here.
In other words, no one would be coming to save the inmates. Well, tough shit.
Yeah, they'll just burn to death. Their screams will serve as an example.
As always, I always pick the best roles for whips,
It can't be helped.
said the guard.
The army and the fire department have all they can to do to put out the fires in the city and evacuate the people. We can't spare any man to protect this place. We've been ordered to join in the rescue effort in town.
I guess that means we let the kids out.
This was a given, Kaim assumed. Left locked up in their cells, the young inmates would burn to death.
That's the idea.
Also, Joe, but maybe he only learned about these things after, too late, after
Don't be
made some kind of deal.
ridiculous.
I don't know. The guard shot back, sorry.
These kids are all losers. We got into the trouble of locking them in here and now we're supposed to let them out?
Are you serious?
Kaim replied.
Are you serious? I can't believe you say anything so stupid. I'm telling you, they're losers. We don't have time to save them. We're certainly not going to let them run loose. The commissioner would never allow such a thing. And even if he did, I wouldn't allow it anyway.
He obviously meant every word he was saying. They were planning to let them out. Man, the guard is even more of an asshole than the commissioner. The flames were spreading quickly and screams could be heard throughout the prison.
Will you shut up screaming and try to relax here?
There was no time to appeal directly to the commissioner, and such an appeal would only end in failure, he was sure.
Give me the cell keys.
Kaim said.
You're joking.
The guard laughed. There was only one thing to do. Without a word, Kaim landed a punch in the guard's solar plexus.
Ooh, that's gonna hurt.
The guard went down in a heap, and Kaim tore the clump of keys from his belt. The first cell he opened was Diran's. The boy came out looking confused.
Are you one of us?
No, I think that's Jova. Go ahead, Jova.
Are you one of us?
He asked Kaim.
Are you with the coup?
Now you
Not
see, Joe.
interested.
He answered.
So why are you letting us go?
Diran asked.
Because I don't like dividing people into winners and losers.
Thanks.
Diran said. Sporting a big grin, he took the keys from Kaim and turned away to start opening the other cells.
I want you to come back.
Kaim said to him from behind.
What's that?
This is an emergency evacuation. When the sun comes up and the fires are out, I want you to come back here. You kids still haven't finished paying for your crimes.
Huh.
They'll throw acid on us.
You must be kidding.
Not at all.
Kaim said.
If you kids run away, that'll just prove they're right. Once a loser, always a loser. Is that alright with you? Don't you want to show the ones who rule this country that they're wrong, that people can change?
But we'll never get another chance like this.
This coup is going to fail. You can run around all you want, but they're going to catch you in the end. You'll always be branded losers. They might even kill you when they catch you.
Didn't you hear? They got rid of the acid. The acid was hurting us too quickly. They want to drag it out with the ice cold water.
Diran turned to stare at Kaim. The prison was already surrounded by flames against this bright red backdrop. Diran's eyes still burned with the fighting spirit of a warrior. I think that's you, Joe?
That's still TM.
Okay.
Oh, this country's political system can't last much longer. The day will come when you kids can leave prison with your heads held high. I absolutely believe that, and because I believe it, I don't want to see you die for nothing.
Kaim turned from Diran to pull the guard up from the floor.
Come back after sunrise.
With With his final admonition to Diren, Kaim hoisted the guard into his back and trudged away.
Kaim out.
So let's see.
Put me down! I haven't even got the whip yet!
These events occurred 50 years ago.
Oh god, Frank Miller is narrating now again.
An air of freedom pervades the country now when Kaim visits 50 years later. True, he does catch glimpses of young toughs and juvenile delinquents where the nightlife thrives, but he feels this is just a sign of the free and easy times. An old man calls out to him, "Are you a traveler?" When Kaim nods, the man says with a smile, "You're in luck! We're having a celebration in Revolution Square today. I hear the grand old man of the revolution is going to attend. I'll keep going all night. It'll keep going all night long."
Who this big old man of revolution is.
And it's going to be, and we're going to party with bitches all night long.
A celebration?
That's right. I see you're too young to know what happened here in the old days. We had a coup 50 years ago on this very day. The coup itself was put down in one night, but the rebel troops set fires all throughout the city, so the rest of us were running around like crazy in all directions. Fanned by the wind, the flames quickly enveloped the whole city, and a lot of city people were stranded on a sandbar downwind. I was one of them. I had my pregnant wife and baby daughter with me, so I couldn't just dive into the river to escape. Before we knew it, sparks were raining down on the sandbar, and I figured we were done for. We'd all burned to death as soon as the dry grass caught fire. Just as he was giving up hope, he says, a helping hand was extended to them from the most unlikely source. The kids from the juvenile prison came to help us. They were all skin and bones, and the prison uniforms were falling apart, but the prison staff hardly fed them a thing. But they pulled what little strength they had. They saved old folks and children from the sandbar, and they struggled to douse the fires that caught in the dry grass. I saw one boy carry a child across the river and collapse and die the second after he reached the other shore. And some of the ones that were fighting grass fires were overcome by the smoke and burned to death. They risked their lives to save us. Their own lives were not worth living, but those losers, quote-unquote, risked their lives to save the lives of, quote-unquote, winners like us.
Well, how about that?
How the tables have turned.
Also, there were a load of whips with spikes on them in the prison. That was really concerning.
When the sun came up and they could be sure that the fires were safely out, the young inmates went back to the juvenile prison. Yes, it's true, the place was an absolute hell for them, but they went back inside just the same. Not one of them took advantage of the confusion to run away. They played it strictly by the rules, wouldn't you say? We were really moved by their behavior, and people started saying that maybe these losers had their good points after all. Maybe once a loser, always a loser was wrong. And one thing led to another, obviously.
Well, look at that, Kaim. You may have just helped instill change.
The whisper spread throughout the country, quietly, but surely. Soon the view emerged that the treatment of juvenile prison inmates should be improved. An increasingly widely held view was that society ought to welcome ex-inmates more warmly once they had paid for their crimes. Finally, the changing attitude toward loser children took the shape of dissatisfaction with the political system that had continued to foster such a dictatorship. And 40 years ago, a second coup occurred. So 10 years after the first one.
The key leader of the opposition tried to reinstate the acid.
This next coup took the shape of a citizens' revolution that involved the masses, and for that reason it succeeded. That's how the form of government we have today got its start. Listening to the old man's reminiscences, Kaim finds himself smiling and nodding again and again, deeply moved. The last thing the old man tells him is the name of the hero who led the revolution and became the first president of the new government, Diren.
Yay!
So there you go.
Yes,
it's a good
my
thing.
fellow citizens, this is the time for change.
See, this is 10,000s of people have gathered in Revolution Square. As fireworks are sent aloft and the brass band plays the rousing national anthem, the grand old man of the revolution takes to the stage amid thunderous cheers and applause. They run,
run.
Advanced in years now, and having long since removed himself from the center of politics, Diren still has that youthful, fiery gleam in his eyes. There is no way for him to spot Kaim among the assembled throng. And even if he were to notice him, he could never imagine that this young man, unchanged from 50 years ago, was a temporary prison guard on that fateful night. It all happened too quick anyway, so... Hey, this is why this is why we can't have Dwebs write this game, because instead of the meaningful moral, Dwebs would just have the guard kill everybody with acid. So still, they all little
Remember,
claims.
he dropped it. Yeah, you killed them all with that.
Dweb, Jova.
People can change. There are no winners or losers.
His words are greeted with cheer and fireworks, and the excitement of the celebration reaches its peak. Kaim makes his way to the stand at the far end of the square and buys himself a cup of liquor. He raises his cup to the hero of the revolution, who from this distant vantage point appears to him no larger than a speck. He downs the drink in a single breath. When the intensely strong liquor has passed his throat, he leaves a sweet and mellow aftertaste.
So you see,
Wait,
Kaim,
does Kaim have ID so he can buy alcohol?
Maybe that kid you saw stealing bread can become the first president of Numara.
Back in these days,
Fine. He'll have his legit date of birth on the ID, but he's so young looking that no one will believe him and he forged the ID.
my guess is Dwebs, in this, since this is kind of like medieval-ish in setting, like it's one of those, as long as you look like an adult physically, they'll just assume you're an adult, basically. All right. Fortunately, since Dwebs wasn't writing this, no, the inmates did not get downed with acid. It was just icy water specifically. So
Yeah, I mean, if I
Icy
wrote,
water that could cause frostbite, but
I mean,
you
if
know,
I-
I guess that's not as bad.
also Pedro, if I wrote this, they would still have the happy politics ending, but then the evil guard, obviously much older, still has acid on his person and chucks it at the ex-president.
And that's how dear and we
Burning
can
him
become
alive in
two-faced.
front of his people, demoralizing them.
all right, everybody. In the next part, we'll get back to the main story, which includes the final main vanilla game dream, which tells us the backstory of Ming. So see you then.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah.